Hello and welcome to the Gallant Few Rangers podcast. My name's Colin and I'll be your host this evening. I've been a busy man today, just like Ross Wilson. After last night, we'll get a stellar lineup to try and cheer everybody up. Just as well, Ross is, he got my text and he's got to his bed early. Joining me tonight is, first of all, Graham. How are you doing?
Hi, Colin. Doing well, thanks.
Davie P, how are you?
Fantastic, Colin. Suffering a wee bit from having a wee bit too many medicinal halves last night after that, but charging on.
I tell you what, with the weather and the entertainment on display, I don't judge you at all for running down on your sorrows. So no judgment from my end. Last but not least, joining us, Chris. Chris, how are you, mate?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. I obviously just relatively happy that we managed to get the win in the end last night. And it's been a busy day, obviously, with Rangers. So I'm good, mate. Thank you.
Thanks for coming on. So let's not beat around the bush anymore. New signing, Diallo. Chris, I'm going to start with you. I'll be frankly honest, as we always are on this podcast, the rest of don't really know fuck all about him. So please enlighten the listeners with the minimum knowledge you have, but it might be minimum, but it's a lot stronger than fuck knows, mate, that I can give you.
Aye, as I say, that I wouldn't be an expert here in this matter, but certainly having reading some info today appears to be tricky winger over the sort of Ryan Kent mould which I was reading. Obviously can kind of be very direct on the wing. Looks like he can cut inside as well, depending on obviously which wing he's in. I was reading that he's quite slight in terms, I think maybe 5'7" potentially. I don't know if I've read that properly, but he doesn't shirk away from the defensive aspects of things. So I think he does his tracking back and he'll sort of work hard. So he scored a goal which I saw actually in the Europa League. It was like a sort of backwards header against AC Milan at Old Trafford in the sort of pandemic time. So obviously they signed him for big money at Man U, and it's obviously not worked out for him. So I think potentially a direct option as opposed to obviously our injury that we saw with Hadji the rest of the season. So, and I think, to be honest, based on what we saw last night, I can see him getting a game, no bother at all if he's half good. So, particularly down the right wing, because Scott Wright wasn't too sharp last night. But no, I think, young, obviously raw potential. Obviously only got him on loan with no option for a purchase, but I think Man United have spent that much money on him that was never going to happen. So could be one of these ones that works out really well for the boy. Obviously needs to get game time under him, and he has played at a decent standard for Man U. Maybe not played a lot, but certainly, as I say, getting that game against AC Milan Europa League. So we'll see how it goes.
Davie, I know after last night's outing, and we will come to the game later on, but I think you were maybe thinking along the same lines as me. Scott Wright looked every part of the Aberdeen player, and I think it's probably been that right wing position for the last couple of months. We could see that's probably the only position that doesn't have a guaranteed nailed on starter when everybody's fit. So Diallo coming in right wing. This has obviously been that. This deal doesn't just happen after 24 hours after a poor performance against Livingston. This must have been a well thought out process.
Well, I haven't seen Scott Wright, last night and previous games. When he initially arrived from Aberdeen and he was kind of eased into the team, under Gerrard, I was quite encouraged by what I saw. Scott Wright, and you were thinking, once he gets familiar with the squad, gets pre-season, gets up to speed with what Gerrard requires of him, he's going to make a decent contribution. But you'd have to say in the last few weeks, he's just not, just doesn't deliver. A lot of the times I think that's, he seemed last night anyway, it was just sheer confidence, if nothing else, because he just didn't look like he believed it himself. And obviously that the 0-0 draw last night, the tension ramps up, as the game rolls on. Some people just aren't fit to wear the jersey, and some will step up to the mark, some won't. But so going into the rest of the season with no alternative on the right wing, particularly with now Hadji, season's over, that wouldn't be a good place to be for me. So it was absolutely required. I mean, I don't know whether this was in the pipeline prior to last night. It must have been. They didn't wake up this morning and say. But it's good that we've got some cover in the right wing, because I think if we've got Kent left, Diallo right, and a firing Morelos in the front, that should do it for 56 for me.
Graham, on Twitter and social media in general today, there's been a lot of hype for this player, mainly around his price tag. And I do kind of get the feel when we start judging players based on how much money's been spent, or the club they come from, or the league that they used to play in, or whatever. What should we realistically be expecting for a 19-year-old or a 20-year-old on loan from Man U, despite his price tag?
I always think it's dangerous to have expectations, especially when they can be so huge. We've seen bigger and more reputable, more experienced players coming up to Scotland and failing. I think this boy comes with a big price tag. He's obviously got a hell of a lot of potential. I would probably imagine that he'll be the most expensive player ever to come to Scotland off the back of a huge transfer. I can't think of anyone else coming with that sort of price tag on their head. I see he's bagged the number 9 jersey. Obviously, that's not the role he's going to play. I think we have a right to be excited in a position that we really needed as well. So, look, expectation-wise, I don't know, because we just don't know enough about him. I think he's made a handful of appearances for Man U, maybe at the top level, 3 or 4 maybe. I know he's played in the Champions League and the Europa League. He's got something to prove. And actually, Man U have sent him on loan with the view that he's part of their future and he's going to be a big part of their team up and coming. That's, again, something different to some of the loans we'll maybe see sometimes and get in. So, listen, I think it's a really good signing. And I'm delighted to see him come in, and fingers crossed he's going to do his turn. Because, yeah, we do need a wee bit of a spark at times. Last night being one of those.
Aye, and I think there's clear and obvious talent there. You don't play for Atalanta, you don't play for Man U, you don't represent the Ivory Coast without talent. It's such a young age as well. But I just hope Rangers fans can be a very demanding support. We've spoken about that time and time again, whether it be a new signing, whether it be somebody who's been there for 10 years, or even a young player coming through. If there is this expectation, and it wasn't delivered yesterday, we can be quick to go on their backs. But I just hope we judge him for the job that he has to do at Rangers, and know the price tag that Man U paid for him. So going the other way, Chris, Juninho Bacuna. It's reported that he's went to Birmingham City for a fee around 400 grand. A big portion, or some portion of that, would be going to Huddersfield due to the type of agreement we signed him on. Bit of a weird one. I don't have any regrets about him leaving at all, but I don't really have any ill feelings. It was never. I don't know. He was never somebody I was banging a drum to get into the team, but he didn't really offend me in any way.
I think for me, it was a bit of a strange signing, because he never really kicked on or was played enough really for us to have properly judged him. But similar to some other players that have came in that have maybe potentially been squad players, when they've had those opportunities, they've not really taken it. Obviously we're looking at the players that are missing just now for the team. You've got a Rebo sitting in the stands, for example, and last night, nobody's really stepping up to that plate. And I think obviously Bacuna, when I saw him, you can see he's got a bit about him, the boy, obviously. You can see he's got a bit of talent. Quick on the turn, head up, trying to obviously find some passes in behind, but it just never really clicked for him, to be honest. And I think that's probably, we make a lot of stuff coming in the way. It's obviously what we want to look at as fans, but I think certainly getting players like that are not going to play off the wage bill. It'd be ideal, obviously, not to make a loss on them, but to get them off the wage bill is what you're wanting. You don't want players just sitting about with a massive squad of players you can't rely on. So, no, it wasn't ever anybody that I thought if he was starting the day we would have won that game. I don't think he's somebody that was really ever going to do much for us, to be honest, and probably find his level wherever he goes back down. But I think for him, he's obviously trying to get game time in it, and it wasn't going to happen it didn't happen under Gerrard that much, and it wasn't going to happen under Gio.
No, I know. The guy that signed you, if he's not playing you, then it's, you do have an uphill struggle. Davie, Chris makes a really good point there about getting a fee for these type of players. In years gone by, the Rangers boardrooms of old would have just, paid off the rest of the contract or let them leave for free. Suppose not every signing's going to work out, but it's quite pleasing to see how grown up we are now with these type of affairs, where we can get a player, realise they're not working out within 6 months, and then moving them on for a wee bit of money. We've not really lost anything out of it.
Absolutely, and I think the director of football role that Ross Wilson has, and taking a long-term view, is absolutely crucial here, because I think in the past we've probably overpaid some players, and you actually don't know what they're going to be like until they do arrive, with Diallo as well. So when they actually get that blue jersey over their head and get out on that pitch, you will find out what they're going to contribute to Rangers. If they don't cut it, and you've put them on a nice 3-4 year salary, and you've maybe just gone just that wee bit higher than you would have wanted to, they'll be quite happy to then shift them later on. If they don't cut it, it becomes a problem. And that's when I think we were taking cut price deals, because guys who were sitting in some nice money weren't being offered the equivalent elsewhere. So it wasn't in their interest to move on. And I think Ross Wilson taking a longer term view, and you can see that Bacuna would be one of those, is that, we brought him in from Huddersfield. You don't know how it's going to arrive until he gets to Ibrox, gets out onto the pitch. So, and then, we've had a look, played a few games, Gio's made the assessment, maybe you'd be better elsewhere, and now he's off to Birmingham. So to shift them on is as important as getting them in the door without, losing your shirt every time. So, and I think that's a long-term view that has to be taken to do that properly, rather than dive in. You shouldn't be signing anyone in desperation. You should be plotting these things in. We should be 2 and 3 transfer windows ahead of where we want to be. And panic stations just leads to a lot of money leaving unnecessarily for me.
And absolute credit where credit's due. That's not something you can change overnight. That's years and years of work. And, even when Mark Allen came in for the director of football and started laying the foundations, it was never going to be done within his term. So we're really seeing all this hard work paying off, and, we can do sensible business in and out. Last word on the I'm loath to say activity, because this is more of a rumour, Graham, from today. James McAtee at Man City, we're linked with him. So I think the four of us, none of us really know too much about him, but the fourth official, you were saying, they're usually quite a reliable source. They're reporting that we're looking to go into a loan agreement with Man City. So another midfielder. This is obviously Gio's influence. I don't know if we'll probably come to kind of round off what we'd want to see done in the transfer window, but this doesn't really excite me, mainly because we've got James Sands on loan, and I'm really sorry, I keep on nearly saying Dalcio for this boy. I don't know why. Ahmed Diallo, not Dalcio. So we've got James Sands on loan and Diallo on loan. Is another loan in the middle of the park what we need, or do you think is there anything in this? I suppose what I'm asking as well.
Well, I imagine there's something in it. As you kind of alluded to, that fourth officials, I usually find to be pretty spot on with sources. whoever this boy is, he looks to be getting tracked by a few of the Premier League clubs, Villa included. But yeah, I guess a loan at this point for a midfielder, especially in the middle of the park, I think we are in a good position there, to be perfectly honest with you. I don't think that's something we need. Again, maybe another winger, I think, would have probably made us all happy, or certainly somebody that could play across the front three anywhere. So I don't know. Another loan. I feel a bit like the board are potentially gambling a wee bit in terms of, obviously, if we win the league and we get the Champions League riches, then the business we'll have done in January is pretty unbelievable in terms of the money in, getting rid of some of the deadwood, and then a few maybe smart loans coming in. I think James Sands is going to be a really good player for us. Games like last night, I'm not so certain are for James Sands. I think he's going to be bigger in the bigger games, maybe, or the ones where we want to probably have a chance to take more grip of the game. I think he does the dirty work, so to speak, is what we're led to believe. Maybe a game like last night wasn't great, but look, he's 18 months, so that's fine. I think he'll do well. Diallo, I think, is going to be a good signing, and we'll see what happens with McAtee. I don't think that's necessarily one we need, but it could be really smart business. But then again, if we come at the end of the season, we've managed to lose the league, then of course we're going to look back and be critical. So we just need to play it by ear and just trust that Wilson and the management team are doing the right thing.
The prophet of doom in me would suggest, that I'm hoping this is not, going to be leading up to someone else leaving the club. So if Gio's looking at, midfielders, and, you would say we're pretty well stocked at the moment. So I'm hoping that this doesn't, that's just the prophet of doom in me thinks, maybe there's someone would be leaving. With,
that's Mr. Gerrard, maybe Bacuna,
for money. Yeah. Well, maybe the Bacuna's is just a replacement for him. I'm hoping that, that no one else will be leaving with a couple of additions, and maybe even a centre forward. We could look at some cover up front, because I think Alfredo will need some help from time to time.
I think we spoke about this in a couple of weeks ago, but hopefully we don't lose anybody, particularly Aribo. We obviously said a while ago we can't lose him, and him going over to AFCON, you saw the dip in the team. The performance at Aberdeen was really poor, and the going forward, it just had no identity or shape, to be honest. And I think Aribo was massive for that, in between the lines and getting the play going. And then last night was just crying out for, obviously Scotty Arfield ended up stepping up, but last night was crying out for that. So I think certainly if we lost him for the season, it would be a disaster if he was to move on. So hopefully it isn't a sign of movement going out, but the way these things go, down to deadline day, somebody doing a panic buy, somebody getting into do someone else. Hopefully it's none of our players, because I would worry about the strength of the team if we were to lose somebody on, or without a solid replacement, particularly him, to be honest. So hopefully that isn't the case, David.
I think it's important as well that one thing that's overlooked, and one thing I've found pretty frustrating today, is some overreaction. One, in terms of our performances, etc., our squad depth. I read The Athletic again, who I do quite like what they're saying. I completely disagree with them saying we have a worrying lack of squad depth. I think that's pretty abysmal reporting there, when we're 4 or potentially 5 first team players down, and have been for actually a while. When you look at Jack, Hilander, just to name a couple, Roof is very much in and out. And for me, Roof, I always say it, but he would be my starting 11 week in, week out if we had him available. So I think our squad depth is there. Of course, we're going to struggle a bit. Aribo is miles, head and shoulders ahead of anything we have in our squad. And I include Morelos, who's one of our best players. But Aribo is a £25 million player. That's the only way we lose him in this window. If somebody comes in with an astronomical amount of money that we just can't refuse, I just don't see us losing any of our big players now between now and the end of the window. but I do think we have a good squad depth and we need to trust in the players. I think some of them are getting a bit of a hard time just now as well.
One other small thing was from last night was seeing Ryan Jack back on the pitch, because I think if we can keep Jack fit, he will make a serious contribution for us this season. Because from the cameo performance he put in last night, you can see Jack's got it. He's got it.
Yeah, just on the squad depth thing, Graham, you and I joke quite a lot in here that we tend to be glass half full, and it might be the optimist in me, but if Rangers didn't sign anybody else for in this transfer window, I still think we'd have, even before the Man U boy, Neil said Diallo again, before he came in, I would have still been confident that Rangers have a strong enough squad to go and win the league. But I think a couple of signings coming in just helps take the gamble away a wee bit. But I think it's absolute testament to the strength of our squad that we've had so many injuries, players in and out. And even this isn't just the last couple of months. Look at the start of the season as well, where we were, Andy Firth was nearly playing right back at one point. We're still 4 points clear. I totally agree with you. I think we do have a strong squad. It doesn't quite get the recognition.
Absolutely. And one thing that's worth pointing out when we talk about the run of matches that we've had as well, we've won 10 out of the last 12 in all competitions. Now, Celtic are, without a doubt, in the best run they're on. I think they've won 11 out of the last 12. Now, we do talk about some of the performances we've had, but even with them being on their best run, arguably, of the season, we are still maintaining that 4-point gap. Yeah, the performances might not be there, but over the last month, we've played Hearts away, Aberdeen away, Hibs away. Yeah, the performances haven't been amazing, but we've got the points we've needed and we're still maintaining that. Now, if we go into that game next week with that 4-point gap, it takes the pressure off us. So yeah, I get that people might be frustrated with our performances as a whole, or look at coming back from the winter break a bit sluggish. Well, actually, it's the 3 points, it's all that matters. And last night was another huge 3 points.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think, overall, we should be happy with how things go, but I do think there's a direct link between Joe Aribo not being in the team the last 2 games in that performance level. And I think, if again you're saying that he's £25 million player, he's for me the best player in Scotland. I said that man at the first podcast, but if with him not there, it just doesn't click. So that's the point. That for me, he needs to. His focal is massive. And it's the same as every club, really. You take out your best player, you're going to struggle. So, yeah, I hope that he doesn't go and there's no time to replace him. But I think overall, we need to be happy with the season so far. But as you say, we've been to some tough places. Aberdeen gave their life, in that game. They gave absolutely everything. And as we saw, they don't follow it up the next game. You could have put your house on it, that was going to happen. So, in these grounds that we go to, the teams, they give it everything. So it's been definitely, particularly with Gio coming in, you were thinking it's not going to be, a smooth. They done brilliant, and that was his first drop points. But as I say, I would worry about the team if Aribo was there, and I think we'll see a big difference being back in massively.
The last point I want to come to on the transfer window and squad depth and stuff, Davie, I'm going to come to you around this. So I know you're a massive fan of Alfredo. So when we're talking about anybody potentially coming in, I know you mentioned that it is worrying for you what Rangers are like when Morelos isn't there. So and when I ask you this, I don't want people thinking I'm shitting the bed just because he's away for 2 games, but it's probably more if the unthinkable happen, if he loses form for the rest of the season, we need somebody to come in and steady him. If he gets injured, touch wood, he doesn't. Do you think with Sakala, Roof and Itten, are any of them good enough replacements for Morelos to step in, or would you want another striker?
Well, having watched said on Friday night, against Stirling Albion, and then Livingston last night, you're thinking, are we taking a gamble if that's what we go with for the rest of the season? Because obviously Roof and Sakala go in there, and Sakala through the centre, with pace, would be a different option. How does that fit in with the rest of the team? With Kent out left and and Diallo and right and Sakala in the middle, how does that change the dynamic? So it may be, and I would think just for some protection for ourselves, that we have a replacement type player for Morelos, so that it doesn't disrupt the structure of the team if we take Alfredo out and pop someone else in. I don't think Big Ted is not quite as, doesn't seem as imposing physically. He was up against two monsters last night, right enough. But I would, and just the ability to, he missed one on Friday night, which I think it would have been easier to score. He eventually did get the goal, but we're playing Stirling Albion. We're playing Livingston last night. We didn't have too many shots on target, and it was Scott Arfield coming on, with a nice bit of quality to get us the 3 points. So I was concerned about our lack of chances last night, as much as anything. So we didn't seem to be ripping into them. So, but Livingston are a hard-working team, and you got to hand it to Jason Holt. He runs about with the wee midfield general, keeping all these guys organised. So we're very well organised, Livingston, but we'll be coming up against the other well-organised teams. And to do that with Cedric Itten, week in, week out, if Alfredo was to be injured, I would be looking for another option. And that other option may already exist in Roof and Sakala, but I would think I would just take out another wee bit of insurance.
I think for me, I think Roof is a natural replacement as a number 9, or even maybe not even a replacement to challenge Morelos for that place. We've got the luxury. Roof can play on the right or in behind the striker, but I do get the argument that Roof, he's just coming back from injury. It's not his first coming back from injury, so it's how much are you going to get with that? So, and again, it's just really down to how much the club want to gamble in this window for what lies at the end of the season. So,
yeah, it's not so much. I mean, with Roof, I think we have ability. What the question mark with Roof is reliability.
Mm-hmm.
As to whether how many injuries he'll carry, because he seems to run from one to the other. So it's no doubt about it. I mean, because I think Roof is a smashing play, very sharp, very quick thinking in the box. He's a quality player. But as to whether he'll be playing 10, 12, 15 games on the spin, we haven't seen it so far. I mean, maybe he's through the worst of it. Pretty much the same as Ryan Jack. If we've got a fit Ryan Jack back, he's as good as any signing that we're going to get for our midfield in this window.
So that was a good, nice 20-odd minutes of talking about transfers coming in and out, and it is a bit exciting. The wee boy in you, the nerves of your best player going, or who you got to potentially bring in. So we've had the nerves, we've had the excitement. For the next 15 minutes, it's got to be downright grim, listeners, because we've got to talk about the Livingston game. Graham, I don't really know where to start. I think the first 15-20 minutes, you knew it was going to be one of those nights, and I said it in the kind of post-match thing they done last night. The chances we were making at the top end of the pitch and just not looking anywhere near like taking them, coupled with Bassey, Golson and McGregor just being hell-bent and being jailbait with the passing at the back. It had that feeling of it's going to be a long, long night.
Surprised you pulled Bassey out there. But anyway, no, I think...
Really? Am I being harsh here?
Yeah, I think so in Bassey, but I think specifically the first half, I feel like there was a kind of a two-face aspect to our team last night, specifically in the first half. I think you could tell our fullbacks all looking right up for the game. Sakala, I thought, was excellent, causing them problems. However, the spine of our team, specifically in that first half, was what really damaged us. I think, as you've mentioned, McGregor, Goldson's passing was abhorrent. Kamara's first half, I feel like he had a Gordon Jury touch most of the time. He just couldn't seem to get the ball under control, slack passing. And then you get up top. He seemed... I'm actually more of a fan than, by the sounds it, Davie is. I feel like he was exposed, left up there quite a bit last night. At times, if you noticed, there was 15 yards between Itten and our nearest midfielders. So I think it was a hard night for him. I think he does have something. He's got a good touch, a good stride, a good burst of pace. I just think, see if he was up front in a 2, I honestly believe he'd be excellent. And I think we need to keep the faith in him a wee bit and just see if he can give us more. I'm not saying he's going to be a starter, but look, last night he wasn't great. He wasn't, but a few of our players weren't. But it's a shame because, as I say, I felt like some of our players, specifically in that first half, did look really up for it. Obviously, the weather was horrendous. I think if we were all at that game, specifically, if you sat in the front of any of the stands, you'll have been soaking after about 20 minutes. I saw a couple of people give up and move or watching the game in the concourse, which, by the way, I never understand for the life of me why you're in the stadium. Yeah, just go home. But yeah, look, it wasn't the best, but it was a great 3 points. And look, we can say it over and over again. That's the kind of 3 points that win you titles. Mingin, Wednesday night, hard team to break down. Martindale I still don't think the guy gets enough credit. But, you know, that's as good a 3 points as we'll get all season. And I mean that. Brilliant.
David Martindale is so likeable, and it wasn't until a couple of weeks ago I didn't click the resemblance. Somebody on Twitter was put up a Hasbulla video and said, "Oh, David Martindale doing such and such," and I'm a big fan of that boy Hasbulla, and I was like, "Oh my god, I'm a fucking Livingston fan now. How did this happen?" But Chris, going back to talk about football and not Russian fucking 2-foot MMA fighters. A big thing for me last night was Sands and Kamara. So Graham did allude to Kamara there. He didn't have a good first half. I thought Sands actually had a better first half, and then in the second half, I'll get a bit of a stick here, but I actually thought they'd done their job well in the second half. It's just that their job was not needed against Livingston. We needed Arfield to come on earlier. We needed an Aribo. And talking about Itten being left up himself, and I'm not going to let Itten get a bye for some of the chances he was missing, or he wasn't holding the ball up. But I do think we could have helped him a bit more by having a kind of oncoming, on-rushing midfielder.
Without a doubt, and I think with Itten we need to be very realistic about the amount of football that he's played recently. He's not played a lot, and he's probably the type of big guy that needs to be playing regularly. You know, I remember recently the sort of Sky Sports panel talking about Lukaku and saying that that's a guy that needs to be kicking a ball every day at the gym. You know, if you give him a couple of weeks off, he might struggle. And I think, but Itten's a big boy, and I think he needs to be, you know, fit and match fit. And I think it's quite clear. I know he was doing a lot of running about last night, sometimes aimlessly, but I think it's quite clear that he's not fit at the minute. And we weren't doing him any favours because the service up to him wasn't great. And sometimes when the ball was actually coming to him, it was like bouncing off his knee, or it wasn't hitting the right place. So I felt it a wee bit for him last night, because I don't think he done himself any favours in the Friday night game either with some of the performance. But I think we do need to be realistic, you know, in terms of his fitness and where he's at. I think it always baffles me in those type of games when we do play with like kind of holding midfielders. You kind of think, you wonder why that happens, because you know you're going to have most of the ball in their half, and the game was crying out for Arfield to come on and get in, obviously between the lines. So it was no real surprise that when that happened, we started to kind of fire the pressure on. I was a bit disappointed with Scott Wright last night. I felt I like Scott Wright and I want him to do well, but I felt sometimes his decision making, particularly different points in the second half, wasn't the best. But I think overall, just what Graham said, it's absolutely spot on. It's games like that are massive towards a title, and we all remember, you know, Walter Smith's side going towards that 3 in a row. How many teams we just kind of done over 1-0, and you come back and you get in the motor or you got on the bus and you thought that was rotten, like that was a rotten game of football. But they're massive and they lead towards it. And when you look at, you know, last season was obviously great for us, but when you look at last season for Celtic, it was games like that they were dropping points in. You know, Livingston were going and doing a number on them because exactly what Davie Martindale does, he just sets up and they can be dangerous because Livy had a few chances last night as well. They had a few opportunities through, you know. So, overall, I think it was all right. But when you're thinking about Ibrox under the floodlights, that's definitely not up near top 100 games at all. That's getting ranked in one of the worst ones. But big 3 points, and you've got to be very realistic about the amount of key players we were missing last night going forward as well. I think if you're looking at the lineup as it comes out, you are predicting that where's the creativity coming from, where's it going to come from, and where are we going to get it. So I said that to my brother after the game. That's massive 3 points, because at one point it was looking like it was going to be drop points, you know, and we managed to get the win. So happy days.
And Gio did allude to that several times in his press conference last night, that like it was there wasn't too many different options he could have went with last night due to the injuries and that. And I don't think that was a cry to the board that we need to sign more players. I think this was just a very Dutch manager matter of fact. Like, listen, it's had X, Y, and Z out, so that's the team we played with. Davie, let's finish in a couple of positives and starting with Scott Arfield. I'm a big Arfield fan. My biggest criticism of Arfield is he can take a while to get going in the season. Sometimes he does take about 9-10 games in a season. So I was worried then when he had this injury to take him out of a few weeks. Does that put him back maybe 4 or 5 weeks to getting up to like the kind of marauding, driven Arfield that we know? I don't know if it was just compared to the rest of the team, or if he is up for it, but I thought he did bring a spark last night, and also he had a really tidy goal.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's probably a good example of someone who you're bringing up from down south, and you don't know how they're going to, you know, how the Rangers jersey will fit these guys. But clearly Scott Arfield is in his groove, you know, out there. Took him a while, and as you say, you know, coming back from injury maybe takes him a few games, and maybe I'm just being a wee bit too hard on Cedric Itten, because I can remember when Hateley arrived, and the centre forward, he had some injury issues when he arrived. You know, there was an element of the Rangers support, you know, within 2 or 3 months of Hateley's arrival, you know, want this guy shipped out, but we managed to have patience. And you then look at what he then contributed. And I think maybe it's true of Scott Wright, but I think Scott needs someone to put his arm around him, tell him, you're a great player, Scott. Just because there was one instant last night where he got into the box, and rather than pick out someone in the box, he just leathered it from a fairly tight angle. And you're thinking, you know, that was just the wrong thing to do. And maybe if Itten's relying on service like that, then maybe it's no wonder the boy's falling short, because the centre forward needs to get passes into the box to do his job, and Scott Wright just chose the wrong option. He made the great burst into the box. He got a wee bit of daylight, heads up, no, woof, straight over it, as hard as he could hit it from an almost impossible angle. So maybe it's just a few tweaks that we need, you know, to get the service that it requires, and not be maybe I'm demanding, because I was sitting there last night, you know, we're now 65 minutes into the game, and I'm saying to the boys, this has got disaster written all over it. I mean, thankfully I was proved wrong, but because when Arfield come on, and you look what he did at Livingston earlier, you know, with a nice run, clipping, just a wee lob over, just enough guile, I think, confidence maybe it's the experience, which others in the team maybe just don't have. It's about not doing it at breakneck speed. It's about lifting your head sometimes and choosing the right option. So maybe that's just something which will come with time. And maybe I just need to, I mean, I've not managed in 60 years, but maybe I need to be a wee bit more patient with him. So,
maybe you'll learn one day, yeah?
I probably won't.
I wanted to touch on just a wee bit that Davie had touched on earlier, actually, and it is the return of Ryan Jack. I think that Ryan Jack's one of my favourite players in this Rangers team, and I was concerned that it probably looked as if it wasn't going to work out for him with the injuries, and we know he's had horrific injuries for pretty much his game, but what he offers, cracking football player, And I think under Gerrard as well, you actually started to see him get numbers to his game as well in terms of assists and goals for a period of time. If you remember the time he scored, maybe Ross County, and he ran over to Gerrard and the high fives and stuff. But unfortunately for injuries, it's been tough. But he offers so much protection to our team, particularly under the old system, where Tavernier would bomb forward and Jack would cover in for him quite a lot. So, but for me, he's massive. He's a leader, I think, as well within that changing room, and he brings lots of experience. So if we can get Ryan Jack back, to his best as we go the rest of the season, it's going to be, it's like Davie said, that's like a new signing, a cracking player. And it was great to see him back, just from the perspective of it must have been an absolute nightmare for him, the continual injuries. So for that was me for a massive positive, and hopefully that continues, the consistency. And again, the young boy Lowry, obviously Alex Lowry playing in the the touch and the he looks the part, doesn't he? He looks fearless in terms of his performance. I don't want to put too much pressure on the boy. It doesn't look as if he feels pressure anyway. It just looks as if he's all right and he's fine, But I thought that was nice to see that, because I don't know, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we don't see an awful lot of boys coming through and doing well. I think we've seen a lot of boys coming through. Like what Michael Beale had alluded to, the number was quite high when he said, I can't remember how many it was, but it's quite a lot of boys that have came through the academy under the last 3 years or 4 years, but not a lot of them kick on. Obviously Nathan Patterson has and left, so it would be really nice to see that boy. And I think you've all got opportunities based on what we're talking about, certainly a position. So that for me was positive. Always looking to try something, and it's not always the kind of thing you would expect him to try as well. He's got a wee trick up his sleeve, so interesting to see how Gio continues to use him. And as I said, delighted to get Jack back in there, because I think that'll be massive for not just on the pitch, but in the changing room as well with the boys that are coming in.
Graham, I was going to come in, Alex Lowry, and just totally agree with everything Chris says. You love to see any young player come through, but there's a difference in a young player coming through and being arrogant and cocky. Alex Lowry isn't that. He's comfortable. I think that's probably how I would describe it. And I thought, I didn't think he'd be anywhere near the starting 11 last night. I thought there was a big jump between playing against Stirling in the Cup and then Livingston in the league. But I think that's probably testament to two things. Gio, he was asked about it at one of his first press conferences. He's a big fan of giving youth a chance, and on top of that, Alex Lowry, he's there in merit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was Michael Beale actually tweeted at the time on Friday, if he'd came on, he would have been the 12th academy player to get a debut for Rangers since June 2018. So that's brilliant. And yeah, I think the biggest part for me last night is that Gio could have started a senior player instead, but he went with Lowry because he came on 13 minutes into the Stirling Albion game, scored his goal, but I think impressed everyone, and it does just show. And what it's going to do is pass down to the guys, especially in the B team, who I think it's great they're getting the competitive games this season. I think it's obviously going to be a really fruitful exercise for us that's happening, and it's going to show them that if you can make that breakthrough and get into the team and actually show what you're worth and show what you can do, there is that chance that you get a run in the team or you get a next game. And I think that's the most important thing. You've got guys like King and Charlie McCann who have been in the squad more recently. And again, it just shows it's not just a cup. It's not just, we're going to play the youth in the cup and that's it, and then you'll be back in the B team. There's a real chance to succeed in that. That's a huge thing. And I do think as fans we want to see the younger players and listen from that kind of business model point of view we're talking about and what we're doing. The board will love to see that as well. If we've got young talent we can bring through instead of splashing money and wasting money in players like Bacuna, who we touched on, then great.
It was good to see Alex Lowry, just be himself. Sometimes I think when the players come on and they're making their debut, it's the safe option. Just don't do anything wrong. But you could see that Alex Lowry was just playing his own game. With some of the touches and the turns that he makes. He doesn't always take the easy option. which requires a wee bit of courage, because it's so daunting to walk out there, with that level of expectation on you, and say, right, just don't make an arse of this. So, but it's got to be more than that. It's about not making an arse of it, but contributing. And you can see that Lowry's doing that, which fills me with some confidence about the boys' courage, first of all, and his technical ability. So certainly from first I saw him on Friday night, and then from last night, you're saying, well, this couldn't be more encouraging. Obviously more game time will let us know, but certainly the boy certainly looks the part for me.
And that's what's made him stand out, because obviously every player that comes through the Rangers Academy will have an element of talent, but the words you're saying there, Davie, confidence, courage to go and do it, and a wee bit of imagination. What I really liked about him was he was playing that number 10 role, but he didn't just stick to the middle of the park. You've seen him time and time again going to either byline, dragging defenders away, looking for different balls. He's really impressed just with the confidence and going out there and knowing that he's there in merit. So one way to continue, and kind of alluding to the point I made earlier with Diallo, that we just need to tailor this expectation. He's not going to go and score a hat-trick against Celtic on Wednesday. This is the key time that we continue keeping them in the squad and gain more and more confidence and work, harness that ability, but we don't want to fly them in and crush them too much. But I'm sure Gio and the backroom staff have got a plan for them. So finishing off, looking ahead quickly to Ross County on Saturday. Just the last 5 minutes, I want to get your predictions for the lineup and the scores. I think, unless there's any objections, I think the back five picks itself. McGregor in goals, Tavernier, Barisic, the full-backs, Golston and Bassey. I don't think... I know Balogun was coming back into the fold, just back from injury, but I can't see Van Bronckhorst breaking up a fairly successful partnership at centre back going into Parkhead next week. Chris, we'll start with you in the midfield. I think all being well and all fit, I'd like to see Glenn Kamara and Scott Arfield with Joe Aribo in front of them. Any other thoughts?
It'd be brilliant to see Aribo back, obviously. It was good to even see him in the stands last night. A wee bit of hope. Sadly for him, his team got put out early, but that for us means he's back in action. So I'm hoping that he gets himself a bit of game time before obviously Wednesday. We do all right, obviously, up at Ross County. I think they took a lead, didn't they, at Ibrox recently. Obviously we beat them, but I would agree with you, mate. Probably go with that. I wonder if he'll go with Sands again in Kamara, because he obviously seems to like that. Maybe thinks away for him that might be the option. But I would agree with you. I think if we can get legs in some game time, I know Rebo's been away playing anyway, so he's sharp. But I would imagine he comes straight back in. He's very important for us, and Gio's recognised that because he's got him obviously points on the board and 1 game's on his own. So no, I wouldn't imagine we'd be swaying too far away from that, to be honest, mate.
Graham, the two wingers either side, you'd like to think Kent comes back in after his suspension, but I suppose, does Gio go with a relative gamble and playing Diallo, getting him game time ahead of Celtic, or do we play a Scott right?
I think what you'll see is, I personally don't think Diallo or Aribo will start against Ross County. One, Aribo doesn't need the game time, and he's just came back from the African Cup of Nations. I think we'll save him unless we need him and unleash him against them. Our front three, and I really do think the same against Celtic, that we should go Sakala, Kent and Roof. Now, I get that Sakala's clearly a lot more effective coming in from the left, which is obviously where Kent has played for us since wherever. Now, I'm not saying it's an unfixable problem, but I think Kent coming in off the right, Sakala off the left, and Roof through the middle I'd love to see that. I really would. My biggest fear about Saturday is a half 12 kickoff. Half 12 kickoff on a Saturday is for us are horrendous, absolutely horrendous. So, look, I think what you guys are saying with the middle of the park is pretty sound. I think Sands, Kamara, and Arfield, and then the front three I had mentioned would be, for me, would be pretty tasty. And you might see Diallo come off the bench, Aribo, but I think that would be my go-to.
Davie, couple of different options flying out. Potentially Sands or Kamara or both of them. What's your thoughts? How's your midfield and your front three look on Saturday?
Oh, I'm going with your option, Colin. Of Kamara, Aribo, and who was the other one?
Arfield,
yeah, Scott Arfield. So because who won't get into the box and obviously the goal scoring opportunities, kind of maybe even take a wee bit of take some of the weight from the front three. And I think it would be Roof up front, Kent out wide, and Sakala all right on the right hand side. So yeah, I mean, a 12 kick off inside the Arctic circles, not too bad. But our track record at Ross County is actually quite good. But it's up to it's about attitude, isn't it? So get Gio, get them the guys. You're a better team than Ross County. Just go out and do what you're good at. So,
I think for me the promising thing, Graham, is even if we were to rest Aribo for Wednesday or rest Kent or whatever, there's a few variations now. We've got a couple of players coming back, and we won't be with, I dare say if we don't play Aribo, we will play Arfield and be strong. So it's even we have the luxury of maybe resting Aribo and have still been stronger than what we were last night.
Well, listen, absolutely. And what I should clarify is I'm not saying we should rest Aribo as such. I just think with the games he played at the AFCON and coming back from Africa, I'm not sure how. I'd imagine that sort of travel game time is going to take a lot out of you. I just don't know if he'll be ready to play as such, and it's not like he needs the game time and he's going to lack fitness for Celtic. I just think whether this is one game too soon in terms of his travelling, I don't know. Listen, if see if he's at good peak physical condition, ready to play, he will be in that team. No doubt he will be in that team. I would just rather, when we talk about that front three, I'd really rather see Sakala on the left. Sakala is so what's the word? The defenders don't know what to expect from him, but I certainly just don't see him as that player that's going to hit the byline. He's going to want to cut in. He's right-footed, whereas Kent, whether he cuts in and does what he does on the left, he's certainly somebody that can take a player on the right-hand side and go to the byline. And I think that's why I'd like to see Kent out on the right and Sakala to keep on the left. It'll be interesting to see what we do. And obviously, Diallo's coming in. Look, I think we're in a really good position. Diallo can come in and really set the place alight as well. So look, it'll be good. It'll be good to see. And it is a really good problem to have, whether it's Kent, Sakala, Roof, Diallo, Wright, Itten. Look, I think we're in a good position.
Well, Sakala last night on his burst from the centre of midfield, straight down the middle, and then leathered it with his left foot, and the goal touched. That would have been goal of the season had that gone in. Because what a run it was! The pace that boy can run with the ball was faster than the Livingston players could without the ball, which was it was quite impressive. That would have been some goal had he put that one in the top corner.
I wonder if he'd scored it, Davie, if he would have done the salute. I don't know whether he's trying to steal Scotty Arfield's.
He is so endearing, by the way. Did you see that? Oh my God.
Yeah, I love him.
He followed when Arfield scored. He was behind him with the same salute.
It was like
very unimaginative.
It was like a wee guy just copying his dad, like just absolute sheer admiration. Oh, I fucking love Sakala. He's so happy, man. He's
he's unpredictable. I think that's the thing about him. Like, I sometimes don't think he knows what he's going to do next. He's like running with the ball, and he's so much energy, and he must be an absolute nightmare. I mean, I kicked the ball about a wee while ago and played right back. If I was playing against him, I would have been up the road. I just wouldn't even have I'm not wanting to play on anymore. I don't want to play because he's just so wildly unpredictable. And it strikes me as well as somebody who would step up in a big occasion as well. Like, he's not phased. Like we used to see with Livingston, where he would just pop up when it mattered. And I think he's just got that kind of, character where, for example, next Wednesday, just popping up and, doing the business. So he's brilliant. And he gets the fans off your seat, doesn't he? Maybe not last night, it was freezing, but he's going to be good for us. And I agree, cutting in for the side. The defenders are turning. They're trying to show him onto the other foot, and they're getting themselves all caught up. So he was creating chances out of nothing last night. And what I quite liked about last night with him was sometimes with a player like that, when they've got loads of pace to burn but they've not got any space because of the block that the team's put on, they usually are frozen out the game. But he wasn't. He was continually involved in the game, trying to cut in, trying to make things happen. So I think it would be interesting to see him getting a good run. And the team I think Gio obviously fancies him as well, which is good.
I tell you what, a front three potentially, Kent, Diallo and Sakala. I mean, that's just three unpredictable, pacey players. I mean, that could really tear it up as well. I guess you just don't know what we're going to do. But look, Sakala through the middle with those two in either side of him does really excite me. It really excites me. That'd be great.
And that's a good note to end it on. That's the thought of blistering pace at the Temple of Doom next week. So just on that, listeners, we'll be back with you on Monday chatting through how we got on at Ross County and looking ahead to Wednesday's Old Firm. As always, thanks very much for listening. Always a pleasure speaking to you, and thank you to my three guests. I'm going to come round and say cheerio, and I want a prediction for Saturday's game before you go off, lads. So start with yourself, Davie. Thanks very much for coming on.
Oh, smashing, guys. It was good to speak. It's always good to chat Rangers, this inexhaustible supply of nonsense. So I'm going to go with a steady 2-0 on Saturday. So go up there, bang a couple of goals in, hopefully make a couple of changes second half, get some minutes in the legs, and then we're off to see who next Wednesday in fine fettle, hopefully.
I'll take it. Chris, always a pleasure, mate. Never a chore.
Cheers, mate. Oh, thank you. Enjoyed it. Again, I think obviously for the weekend, I was just looking before we come on, but the last 4 games with them have been 4-0 to us, 5-0, and the last 2 have been 4-2 to us. So there's goals definitely in these games, usually towards us. But I'm going to go with 3-2 actually, as I think it's going to be trickier than maybe what's anticipated. I don't know why. I've no idea why I feel that. But I think we'll win. I think we will win. I also think we'll win on Wednesday. But I think for some reason, I think Saturday could be tricky. As we've touched on the early kick-off, where it is, up there. I think there's a few things that can make it tricky, but I think we will win because I'm confident up there that we usually do a number on them. But I think it will be tight, but I think there'll be goals in it.
Fucking 3-2, man. I don't know if I've got a 3-2 game in me after last night. Graham, last but not least, thank you for coming on, mate.
Cheers, Colin. 4-1 to the famous. We are the people.
Short and sweet. I'm going to go 3-1, one less. I think we'll take the foot off the gas the last 20 minutes. But no, I'll take any of those predictions as long as Rangers get the 3 points and back down the road. So that brings us to a close this week. Thanks very much for listening as always, and we are the people.